Good morning to you all. Sava here from Football Heritage TV. Today we are going to discuss a lovely day. It's very sunny. The sun is shining through, which is lovely to see. Today we are going to discuss something that I see being discussed a lot this week for some reason. I say for some reason, off the back of something that Jamie Carragher had said about Virgil van Dijk. And it got people talking about the best centre-backs in Premier League history. And I saw on a few shows yesterday that there were lots of people talking about this centre-back and that centre-back, and you can't compare them to them because they're 20 years apart. And this person only won one league, and this person won 10 leagues, and this person did this and this and this. And it got me thinking, how are we judging players? How are we judging players? What are we saying as the best? Because it's a subjective word, isn't it, the best? The best to me isn't the best to you, isn't the best to your friend, isn't the best to their friend, and blah, 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 blah. That's the way it is. So I've attempted here to give you 7 centre-backs that I believe to be the best in Premier League history. Now, I'm not saying this is a God-given right of mine, but these are my 7. These are my 7. And there are a lot more that I could have had. And I'll try and give a little bit of reasoning behind each one. What you will find is that people are very biased to the club they support. For example, you will have Chelsea fans that won't be able to think anything other than John Terry being the best centre-back that's ever played football. He's in my list, by the way, but that was just an example. That's what we do as football fans. We can't see past. So let's have a look. I'm going to start, and in no particular order, I'm going to give the 7 best Premier League centre-backs that I believe. And apologies if you see a pug in the background. He is hovering around. There he is. There's Stewie, who is not one of the best centre-backs in Premier League history. So I will start with this. Let's talk about John Terry. John Terry, an absolute phenomenal centre-half. Now, when I'm talking about these people, I'm going to talk about them as footballers, not all of the off-the-field stuff that we could talk about would be here all day. John Terry, for me, is when I think of a leader of men, him and maybe 1 or 2 others from centre-back or even centre-mid spring to mind through the Premier League era. This guy was a stalwart through Chelsea's decade of dominance. And bearing in mind, Chelsea are the most decorated English club in the last 2 decades. John Terry was phenomenal. A very good tackler. Very, very good at being in the right place at the right time. Would throw his body on the line for anything coming at his goal. Will fight to the death and could lead. He could organise a back 4. He was a talker, a screamer, a shouter, but in the right way. And I think that gets overlooked. There are too many players now that don't talk, that don't lead. Very good defenders, but they keep themselves to themselves. John Terry, for me, had the ultimate package. I thought he was an absolute sensational defender, and some of his partnerships over the years with the likes of somebody who didn't make my list, but will get an honourable mention. The relationship he built with Carvalho at Chelsea, superb. He complimented players. He was a fantastic leader of men and a fantastic centre-half. And again, this is in no particular order. The next person I've written down here is Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand, for me, is that term that we use so easily nowadays with average players. And that term is world class. He was a Rolls Royce of a footballer. Rio Ferdinand played the game at his pace, was always in the right position at the right time. You didn't see, he wasn't a lunger. He didn't get caught out of position. He understood when to go and attack. Yeah? He understood when to go and attack the ball, when to drop off and let the striker win the ball. He had this knack of nicking the ball away from people. But he was one of the first centre-backs in the league that are more like modern centre-backs now, that was comfortable at bringing the ball out, comfortable at bringing the ball into midfield. And in yesteryear, that wasn't the case with most centre-backs, and that wasn't the demand for centre-backs. But now it very much is. But not only can he bring it out, but unlike most of the centre-backs playing football nowadays, he was a superb defender. And I think that gets lost when we talk about brilliant centre-backs. I think some people are great on the ball, but it doesn't make them great defenders. So Rio Ferdinand definitely gets in my top 6 or 7. Let me know if you would agree. He also smashed 2 British transfer records at the time, going from West Ham to Leeds and then obviously Leeds to Man United. And he played multiple times for England. A superb centre-back. The next player on my list is going to be controversial depending on who you support. is Sol Campbell. Now, Sol Campbell, again, if we look at what he did off the pitch, if we look at the whole going from Tottenham to Arsenal and the whole kind of Judas conversation, the whole turncoat, all of this, you've got a conversation. But as a centre-back, one of the best centre-backs I think I've ever seen play. I thought he was a man mountain. He was phenomenal. He was super strong, always in the right point. He was imperious in the air, brilliant in the tackle, threw his body on the line, but was also a talker, more of a quiet talker than a John Terry. But he was a leader of men. Again, Sol Campbell, a top centre-half. The rest of the stuff, we won't talk about that today because you just get embroiled into a nonsense conversation which doesn't need to happen. So Sol Campbell definitely makes my top 7. He makes my top 3 or 4, if I'm honest. I think he is an absolute man mountain of a centre-back who won multiple league titles, trophies in his career. Loads of, 80-odd England caps I think he won. And shouldn't have had that goal disallowed against Argentina. If you know, you know. The next defender on my list is Marcel Desailly. And I don't think people quite understood at the time just how good Marcel Desailly was when he came here from Italy. A cultured sweeper, centre-back, defensive midfielder. He could play all the positions. Up there, he was yards ahead of everyone else. Cultured on the ball, cultured in terms of positioning. Just a wonderful footballer. Played for some of the biggest clubs in the world. Won everything there is to win in world football. Champions Leagues, World Cups, Premier Leagues. This guy is a colossus among men. He was a superb defender. And I think it kind of went under the radar at the time because there was a plethora of centre-halves knocking about in the Premier League at that time. But for me, Marcel Desailly, a colossus. Superb centre-half, read the game intelligently. And you know what? I think a lot of these, in these new days, this new generation of football, we use all these words to describe players like baller and generational. I don't subscribe to these silly, childish words. All I know is that Marcel Desailly was cultured. He was a fantastic footballer, so he's definitely making it into my list. And this is just my list. If I then look at the next one is a guy, again, had his off-field problems, but boy, he was a top centre-half. And my team couldn't find a way against him numerous times. And that is Tony Adams. Tony Adams, a leader, a born leader, a talker, a communicator who marshalled that superb Arsenal defence that, remember the 1-0 to the Arsenal? That's what it was, wasn't it? 1-0 to the Arsenal. And he was the leader at the back there. Whether his partner was Martin Keown, whether it was Steve Bold, a few players that are probably going to go overhead a few of the younger players' heads, and then Dixon and Winterburn at right back, left back. He's the one that told them when to go, when to stay, when to squeeze across, when to tuck in. He was a superb centre-half, a true captain of the likes of which I don't think we see anymore. So for me, for that reason, Tony Adams definitely makes it in. The next one for me is Vidic. Nemanja Vidic, when he came to Man United, came in, started getting into teams of the season, won multiple Premier Leagues, looked hard, was hard, great in the tackle, and more than anything, his partnership with Rio Ferdinand was sensational. And I said yesterday on a YouTube channel I was on that sometimes it's easier to judge a centre-half when they've got that partner that they've had for years and they collaborate. And you know that this partner does this part of the defensive duties, this one does this part of the defensive duties. But for me, Vidic was everything you want in a centre-back. I thought he was technically good. He was a man mountain. He was a monster, brilliant in the tackle, good in the air, never lost tussles. You know, he was good in the duel. For me, Nemanja Vidic has to be in there. Top player. Top player. And the last one, it was a difficult one here because when I was looking at 7, there's been so many centre-halves. And I will give honourable mentions to 5 or 6 other players in a minute. But I did put Vincent Kompany into that mix because Vincent Kompany joined Man City at the turn of a generation, so to speak, for a turn of a of a new era for Man City. But what I loved about Vincent Kompany, again, I like, if you haven't got the theme so far, I like talkers, communicators, leaders of men. I thought Kompany was brilliant at marshalling that Man City back four for years. Cultured on the ball, could bring it out, a bit Rio Ferdinand-esque, could bring the ball out, good with both feet. For me, inspired those around him, led that Man City team's success. For me, a top centre-half, epitomised by that goal when he helped them win the title, and people were telling him, don't shoot, and he just top corner. But from a defensive standpoint, I thought he was excellent. So let me know what you think. What do you think of my 7? And don't be rude, it's fine, it's just a conversation. There's loads that we can put in there. And there was 7 or 8 that I've given honourable mention to. Some of them will be more well-known than others. But Stam, definitely got to have a mention in there. Top centre-half. I've put Virgil van Dijk. For me, Virgil van Dijk, I think it came and it went too quick for me. I think he was a colossus for a couple of years. The injury has knocked that out of him. But what a centre-half. He was composed on the ball, strong, pacey, good in the air. Top centre-half, for me, it was very much between him and Kompany, who I put into that last position. But Virgil van Dijk was brilliant. And unfortunately, that 9-10 month injury has kind of killed his football career a little bit. He's still a top player, but just not the levels he was. I said Ricardo Carvalho, who I mentioned earlier, again, goes under the radar. Top defender, always in the right place at the right time. He was the calm to John Terry's kind of screaming. Cultured, good on the ball, swept up, very good player. I've lumped the next 2 in together, Pallister and Bruce. If you know, you know. They helped start the Man United revolution for being the team that won multiple titles in the 90s and noughties. Pallister and Bruce weren't culture centre-half, so to speak. They weren't bringing the ball out, but they were stoppers. They allowed the team to play. They were warriors, battlers, and can be very unlucky that they didn't get more England caps between them. I think Bruce maybe got 1, if I'm not wrong. But top centre-halves that helped Man United go on their way to dominance in the 90s and noughties. Then we look at it, and I've put in Ledley King. I've given honourable mention to Ledley King. Again, what a cultured player. Very Rio Ferdinand-esque. The problem with Ledley King was keeping fit. But when fit, what a player. Another Rolls Royce. Never had to lunge in, always in the right place. For me, I think King suffered where a lot of these other players haven't by not having that top centre-half to play alongside him all those years. And I actually believe this, and Spurs fans won't want to hear this, that if he had have been fit every year, I think he would have moved on to pastures new. However, what if we'd had Campbell and King at the same time? Let that thought fester. Then the last 3 I'll go through quickly. You've got LeBoeuf at Chelsea. I thought, again, another cultured player, very good centre-half. Played for France for many years. Colin Hendry at Blackburn, part of the Blackburn title-winning team in 1994. Someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, 1994. And then another one, a Rolls Royce of a player, a bit like Ledley King, but always injured. Paul McGrath. What a fantastic centre-half he was when I was growing up. Another one that didn't train, just like Ledley King. Didn't train, had his leg wrapped all week. Then they wheeled him out and he played on the weekend. So look, all in all, some top centre-backs have played. I think the standard of centre-backs now is nowhere near what it was. When I look at the centre-backs in the Premier League now, I don't see anyone anywhere near the ilk of the players I've just mentioned. Van Dijk was that one. Other than that, I like the likes of Diaz and Laporte, but again, I don't put them into this category. When I look at, I don't know, Chelsea have got a lot of young centre-halves, the likes of Badiashile, Fofana. Thiago Silva probably could have got an honourable mention. Top player, came here towards the latter end of his career. But all in all, they're my shouts. Let me know what you think. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you so much for all the subscribers so far. Really do appreciate it. And I will have another video out later on today about Frank Lampard and keeping the seat warm for Nagelsmann or Enrique. Or is he? Catch you later, guys and girls. Thank you. Much love. Bye.